You know, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting just to put the camera back on again and just do a stream of consciousness like I did the first time? Because I don't know why. I actually don't know why. I don't know why, and that's really interesting. I've been thinking over the last 24 hours, and thinking is never a good thing. Doing is better, but I've been doing a lot more thinking and less doing, which is usually where my problems start, you know? And I found myself like, with YouTube, I always have this thing where I'm like, it's always been there, where I'm pushing out content and I always feel like a little bit sometimes misunderstood by people. Like they think I'm trying to achieve one thing when actually I'm trying to do something else, or you know, it's really interesting. Like I'll get varied comments and stuff, which I love reading and interacting with. It's just it's also quite addictive, actually, to be honest. But I had one the other day saying, if you want us to engage with the video, comment on the video, then you need to ask us a question. And I thought, oh yeah, that's, you know, that's like old school YouTube stuff. And I was, in my head, I was like, oh my God, I don't know that am I trying to create an old school YouTube channel? Am I trying to create and build a channel again? Is that what's going on? Because I don't know what's going on. I just know I had an urge to turn on the camera when I was feeling the need to. And that desire to reach out, connect, when I was feeling very isolated. But then all this other stuff comes in, right? All this noise. Like, oh, how many views did I get on my first video? How many people commented on my first video? And look at that, I know it's gonna go down. I always know it's gonna go down, and then it's gonna level out, and then I've got to figure out what this is. Like, is this just one big existential crisis? Does that make good content? Why am I asking myself whether that makes good content? Is it good for me to be in front of the camera? Is it not? Like, I watched this really good clip. I think his name's Chris Williamson or something. The podcaster, the UK podcaster guy. He has some really interesting sort of short clips that sometimes I feel are quite good. And he was talking about, what was it? The lonely chapter. Sort of a moment of change or growth or whatever, and some of it I was agreeing with, some of it I wasn't agreeing with. You know, some of it was about leaving people behind and moving on and moving up and all this stuff, and growth, and maybe doing that a number of times and all that. And some people just not doing that because they don't want it. And he never says that's. I don't think he ever says that's a bad thing. He might do. I don't really remember, but I didn't think it was a bad thing. I think some people, you know, appreciate what they got. They have gratitude, which is amazing, really powerful, and they appreciate their friends around them, and you know, maybe they'll have the same job for the rest of their lives, live in the same place, and die perfectly happy, which I think is, you know, to me is, as I've gotten older, it's like interesting. Your brain changes, your outlook on life changes, experiences change you, and you come to appreciate things like that. Like just when I work down the road, because there's nothing around, right? So the nearest thing that I could walk to is the shopping centre. There's a shopping centre. It's small, but it has like a couple of retail stores and stuff. And I worked in retail for a little while to earn money, and I absolutely adored the actual job itself. Like, apart from like the fact the money wasn't great, the actual job itself I adored. I really, really enjoyed. I just, for whatever reason, walked away because that's me. Like, I have this tendency to get into things and then get out at a certain stage when it feels right. That said, I stayed way longer than I thought I would. I thought I was only going to stay like a month or two, and I stayed like 3 years or something, or 2.5 years or whatever it was. But I've kind of lost my trail of thought now. And that will be the ADHD, although I don't have the H, I just have ADD apparently. Oh, so, one of the things I always want to get out of uploading a video every day is, that feeling of accountability. Those of you that have been following know that I've been trying to use this as a form of accountability. Like, I talk to you, I tell you what I'm going to do, and I go and do it. And that's starting to drop off a little bit, and I don't like it. I don't have excuses. I wish I did have excuses, in a way, like valid excuses, but there are no valid excuses. And that's where it's sort of like shame kicks in, I think one of the things that I've recognized is that I have addictions, right? And I don't even notice them because they're not, they are talked about, but they're not frowned upon enough in a way. No, that's the wrong wording. Because I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, particularly my FGC crowd. But I find for me, addiction is when you're already doing something before you've thought about doing it, So for example, social media is the easiest example for me. It wastes so much of your life. So I shouldn't say my life. It wastes so much of my life. And I'm just dying for those quick dopamine hits, man. I'm just like, get in bed, and I reach over to my phone, right, and what I'm looking to do is turn on some soothing music or white noise or something, because I can't sleep without a bit of noise. Like, basically living in New York and London did that to me, so silence is hard for me out in the country. It's literally silent. So I reach over to the phone, and this happens all the time. I reach over to the phone and I'm supposed to just search for that one video, right? That's going to send me to sleep. I know which one. I'm currently using this one called, if you look up Lord of the Rings sleep music, there's this one that I use, this Rivendell night thing, is whatever. But it sends me to sleep, right? It's nice. But before I get there, there'll always be something to click on, right? And I know I shouldn't do it, and I always think to myself, just the one. And then I'm not even fucking kidding, 4 hours later, the birds are tweeting outside, because at the moment, so today is summer solstice, right? In the UK, longest day of the year. You start to see sunlight at 4:50ish. It's actually a little earlier than that. It's a few minutes earlier than that, maybe 4:40 something. But it starts to look light outside. In fact, I videoed it this morning. You can hear the bird. The birds are really loud here in the country, right? And so you can hear the birds tweeting. But anyway, it's just then you're like, what? Where did those 4 hours go? And I've realised I've done that in the past. I've done that I'll cover it in another video when we talk about the lows of the lows, the bed rot, the hermit life. But I have scrolled for a whole day before. And that is an addiction that the only way I can deal with that really is by removing those completely from my life. And I think I have FOMO or something where I need to stay up to date with the latest memes and gifts and all this without wanting to feel like outdated. Anyway, so I got that one right, and then one of my biggest ones throughout my life has been sugar. I think sugar's pretty ghastly. There's experiments that have been done that I think there's a famous experiment on mice where they had the option of sugar or cocaine, and they preferred sugar. Although to be fair, sugar is, I suppose it's a type of food, but sugar and processed foods, like I have to be 100% out of that, because when I'm in it, all I'm doing is thinking about it, and I use it to soothe myself. I used to, when I worked in corporate, I used to go home, and on the way home I would grab as much bullshit to eat as I could, because it would just be soothing, and I would fall asleep in front of the TV or whatever. It was not a healthy life, but it was what it was. And then my other one is sometimes I'll get addicted to games, right? And games is really interesting because games, it's all a form of distraction, right? It's all a form of not feeling the feelings that you're feeling, particularly when you're in a bad spot, or stressed or whatever. But for me, I've been addicted to Football Manager lately. Now I have to delete that off my, I've got to delete it off my, so many, you can do so many mental gymnastics around these things, like, it's okay, I'll just do a couple of hours of that a day or whatever, or I'll moderate it, moderation. I don't really do moderation. That's not how it works with me, that's why I don't really drink. Thank God I never really got into drinking in the sense that I would drink on a daily basis, but when I do drink, it's like all out, it's like, let's get smashed. It's never like, let's have one drink. And there are various other addictions that people take very seriously, including drugs and so forth, but none of those have really been a major issue in my life. But this other stuff, it just it's sort of part of life and creeps up on you and is somewhat acceptable, and by the way, video games can be used in lots of different ways. Sometimes they can save your life. Sometimes they give you a purpose, for sure. And those things will overlap into the rest of your life. Trying to get good at fighting games is actually a really amazing process. Even if you're not good at fighting games like me, the trying to get good at fighting games is completely different. It is a completely different thing. That takes discipline. That takes a lot of thinking and organization and prioritization of what you're going to learn first and how you're going to learn it, and thoughts about what peripherals you're going to use and strategies you're going to employ and all this different stuff, right? But then there's like what I've been doing, which is like I've mastered the game. Like I know how to win the game, but it has an element in it of a very addictive element in it where it's a bit like going through a Pokemon pack where you're looking for the really good card. And I play this game called Football Manager, which is pretty popular in the UK. And man, that can I swear this game can destroy your life. Like it's so addictive in the sense that it has a similar sort of thing going on. Like the game itself is like, you can get bored of like the game, but then there's this element where as the years go by in Football Manager, each new season they create, they used to be called regens, but now they're called new gens, a new generation of players, made up players basically. And you spend all your time, I spend all my time trying to look for the next, let's say the next Messi, right? Because you've got all these statistics and stuff, and so it's kind of like I said, you go on you send out this team to scout the world looking for these young players, and you're looking for a certain specific statistics and ratings by the scouts and all that stuff, and eventually you'll come across this one player who will change your team entirely for 10 years, you know, because it is that diamond that you found. But anyway, I digress. The point is, like, there's a bunch of stuff that you need to do in life, and this is probably obvious to a lot of people, but there's a bunch of stuff you need to do, but there's also a bunch of stuff that you need to get out of your life. And you know, I see this all the time. I've seen it even with my friends, like trying to decrease their screen time and get rid of social media and all that stuff. And for me, it's the same thing. I need to decrease my screen time, get rid of social media, find alternatives, whether that is reading books or, I don't know, AI's become my latest thing. I'm totally addicted to that, and it's really hard because that's like the early days of social media, where it's really hard trying to figure out whether that's a good thing for me or a bad thing for me. I have no clue, because in the moment it feels like a good thing. But there was a video that someone did talking about addiction, and there's some study, I've forgotten, there's another English guy, he was talking about addiction being about isolation or feeling isolated, and that when you're in a community or you feel connected to people, you're less likely to feed the addiction. I honestly, you can tell me in the comments because I'm sure you've seen it, but there's a guy who talks about that specific idea, and I think they had done experiments with rats where they had rats in a cage, a small cage, and fed them something which they became addicted to, and then they had rats where they built them this big wonderful area where they could sort of roam free and do what they want and be in a community and still allow them to have access to these addictive substances. I think it might have been cocaine, I can't remember, but they stopped using the addictive substances, if I'm getting this right. And also, I think one of the other stories was that they were really worried about a lot of the soldiers in Vietnam who were taking heroin, I think, coming back and being junkies and continuing, but the truth was that most didn't. Most were fine. They came back and I think they pretty much went cold turkey. And it was this idea of being part of something, being part of a community. Anyway, wasn't sure what would happen when the camera got turned on, but there you go. Stream of consciousness. I'm actually really dying to talk about midlife. Honestly, I'm just dying to talk about it. But I feel this desire sorry, it's not a desire. I feel this need to post FGC-ish relevant content. And I don't know, yesterday when I put out a video yesterday, I just felt like I did such a sloppy job, you know? And I think that's okay. I think I have to just think more broadly. If you're putting out a video every day, every now and then one's going to be good and one's going to feel bad or whatever. But it got me, circling back to the beginning of the video, it got me thinking because like I said, it's like, wow, in order to get people to engage, you have to ask people a question and have them answer it and all that stuff. And on the one hand, of course I want an audience, of course I want to talk to people, of course I want to be heard. Who doesn't? It seems like a natural human desire to connect, to reach out, to feel like you are needed or wanted. And on the other hand, it's like there's all these metrics and analytics and all that stuff. And the way that I used to run my YouTube channel was I ignored all those, which was probably not a good thing to do. Anyway, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I'll probably release another video later or something. Something FGC related. I'm supposed to go for a run. That's bad. I was supposed to go for a run yesterday and I still haven't been on one today. That is bad. That is bad. And I don't have an excuse for that. Anyway, I'll see you later.